In 2023, the One Piece anime revealed a new level of power for Luffy, and at the same time revealed there was more to him and his devil fruit ability than first met the eye. Luffy, it turns out, is a reincarnation of Nika, a legendary warrior revered as the sun god by several in-world cultures. His existence was part of the history that the world government tried to erase from the world. Whether Nika actually existed is unknown, but the legend of his power from the gum gum fruit, eaten by the first pirate Joy Boy, was documented during the Void Century. Luffy, of course, ate the gum gum fruit, leading to his latest Nika transformation. Joy Boy, as the first pirate, and Nika are both symbols of ultimate freedom, the goal Luffy has been seeking since the very beginning of the One Piece story in his quest to become King of the Pirates so he can become the most free. Along with this new power-up came an exciting new musical cue, which, as I hinted at in my Overtaken video, is musically related to Overtaken, musically tying Luffy's efforts at liberation throughout the show that happened with the Overtaken music to his ultimate form, for now at least, as the arbiter of liberation. Besides the melody related to Overtaken, the Gear 5 theme encompasses the drums of liberation, and those literal drums add even more juicy subtext to the story. Let's start by talking about the drums of liberation themselves. I mean, the literal drums used in this cue, because there is something really cool happening here. In the show, the drums of liberation represent the arrival of the warrior of liberation, Nika Luffy, fated to free the world of tyranny. Why are the drums themselves significant? Well, if we're talking about the whole world, our world that is, most cultures have some form of drumming. Apart from singing, it's arguably the easiest way to make music, and every culture has some form of music, unless it was purposely squashed for religious or political reasons. Making music is fundamentally human, and if you're not going to sing, you can beat on something instead. What makes the Drums of Liberation cue so significant is that it is made up of drums originating on 4 different continents in our world, with some of those drums widely used on the rest of the habitable continents. Or to put it another way, the cue uses drums from around the world. This was something I suspected when I first heard the Drums of Liberation. After teaching world music, I've been exposed to a lot of different timbres of drums from different regions. However, I was not entirely sure what drums were used, so a huge shout out to MCD Music for this incredible cover of the Drums of Liberation. Please go check out that video linked in the description to give him some love. I can't imagine how long it took to transcribe and play all the parts and edit the video the way he did, but it is really a masterpiece. In the description of the video, he listed all the drums used in the recording, which was incredibly helpful to me for this video. So, what are the Drums of Liberation? The cue opens with a taiko drum originating in Japan. Taiko drums were originally used for Shinto ceremonies, but after the mid-20th century, they are more associated with taiko drumming ensembles, which have become an important cultural symbol of Japan. Then there are a couple different types of tom drums. Tom drums originated in South Asia, most likely modern-day Sri Lanka, but they have been used widely throughout the region and the world, as they are now part of the standard Western drum kit. Then the snare drum, which is likely a descendant of the European medieval drum called a tabor drum. It was used for centuries militarily along with a fife and still carries those military connotations. It is also a standard piece of the Western drum kit and frequently appears in Western orchestras and concert bands. The next instrument to note is not technically a drum, but it is still a percussion instrument. Moving back to Asia, we have the jing cymbals. Of Chinese origin, these are a regular member of the Peking, sometimes called Beijing Opera Ensemble, a staple of traditional Chinese culture. Next are a couple of drums originating in the Western Hemisphere. Both conga and bongo drums more or less originate in Cuba, and both can be found in Cuban music. You'll also commonly find conga drums in other parts of Latin America, including in calypso music of Trinidad and Tobago, and among Latino populations of the United States with salsa music. Finally, we have the djembe drums, which originates in modern-day Senegal, and is widely used throughout West Africa. Djembe is the lead drum in West African polyrhythmic drum ensembles. The Drums of Liberation are essentially a polyrhythmic drum ensemble, as there are a bunch of drums playing interlocking patterns that could fit well into different meters, which is also a cool connection to West Africa. The Drums of Liberation also utilize the suspended cymbal. The idea of suspending a cymbal and hitting it comes from roughly the early 20th century, although the nature of hitting a cymbal with a mallet of some kind goes at least as far back as 1830 with French composer Hector Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique. Recommended listening if you've never heard that piece. Other kinds of cymbals can be found all over the map, although their use in a Western orchestra stems most directly from Turkish Janissary bands when the Turks invaded Europe. Whether intentionally or not, although it feels intentional to me, since most of the time you wouldn't find all of these drums in the same room, Kohei Tanaka chose instruments originating across at least 4 continents, with common uses for some across all populated continents, to represent the Drums of Liberation, symbolically representing our world in a cue that is about freeing the One Piece world. I also wonder if it was intentional to start with the taiko drum. One Piece, of course, originates in Japan, with a Japanese author and here a Japanese composer writing the music. Yet it is a story that has made real-world ripples across the globe. Ripples that are represented by the rest of the drums used in the cue. And, although the world's drums are united here in a single cue, they aren't all playing the same thing. The diversity and differences of each culture, or in this case timbre, are celebrated, with unique lines given to each instrument, but all fitting together to make one united piece of music. The world is behind Luffy to free itself of tyranny and become the most free. If you watched my Overtaken video from last month, you'll know I hinted at this theme at the very end of the video. The melodic portion of Gear 5 is the same as Overtaken, with the slightest rhythmic variation, and only uses the first 2 measures. So here is the Gear 5 theme. Instead of 3 quarter notes, we have a quarter note triplet followed by a quarter note, and then the second measure is exactly the same as in Overtaken. Instead of multiple sections creating a build, the build for this cue comes from how close together these 2 measures are. Here's what I mean by that. At first, we have the first measure followed by a measure rest, followed by the first and second measures together. If we go off the soundtrack version, this repeats several times until the 2 measures start repeating over and over again without that measure rest break between. As with Overtaken, the number of times you'll hear each version of the pattern in the show varies based on the cue. A quick anecdote that hammers home the relation between Overtaken and Gear 5 even more. I got to go to the live orchestral One Piece show, which was really incredible. And I was frustrated that they hadn't performed Overtaken yet, when we were getting really close to the end of the concert. But they did finally perform it, so that they could follow it directly with Gear 5. Making it even easier to hear the similarities. Everyone cheered so loud, and it was a really cool experience. Now that we have a musical understanding of the Gear 5 theme, let's look at it in context. Even though there is a lot of symbolism in the drums used in the Drums of Liberation, associations of freedom come from the context of the music in the show. The Drums of Liberation are first heard towards the end of the Wano arc in episode 1070. Zunisha, the elephant of Zo, has arrived at the land of Wano. It appears Luffy is dead, but then a drum sounding like a heartbeat is heard. Zunisha gets the attention of Momonosuke and says, "I can hear them." The drums pick up and Luffy starts to move. Zunisha then identifies the drumming as the drums of liberation.
Momonosuke.
Huh? Zunisha!
Momonosuke. I can hear them. I can hear the drums of liberation! For the first time in 800 years! He's here! I'm sure of it!
Who is here?
The following episode, episode 1071, picks up right where the previous episode left off. We get some boing noises before the drums of liberation kick off the episode. The music cuts off for a checkup on the other characters. Then at around 6 minutes, the elders start talking about the gum-gum fruit, and we get the rhythm of the Gear 5 melody in the drums, foreshadowing the entrance of the new theme. At about 13 minutes, the episode shifts back to Luffy again, and we finally hear the Gear 5 theme for the first time in the show, joining the drums of liberation.
Luffy's peak! Attained! 5th gear!
Joy Boy!
If that's so, this fruit would be rather willful. After all, its true name bears the title of a god.
The Zoan human fruit. Mythical type. Model.
Is that really Straw Hat?
Can we talk about this scene for a minute? It's so goofy. As my husband put it, it's like fighting Popeye. And I love it for that. The music is epic, and if you think about how Overtaken has been used throughout One Piece, it's always these super serious moments, with a couple exceptions, like the coat gag scene. Here the scene is incredibly silly, yet underneath that silliness is a seriousness and a weight. Luffy may be flinging Kaido around like a toy snake while laughing hysterically, but he's still overthrowing a tyrannical dictator, and he did just almost die. But all this is intentional. Joy Boy, as we heard from the elders, is the one who brings freedom through joy and laughter wherever he goes, which fits really well into the whole of One Piece. It started as just a silly story about pirates. It has some super serious moments and deals with some real serious issues, but Oda wanted it to always have a lightness to it. According to the One Piece wiki, Oda wanted to draw something funny and took inspiration from Tom and Jerry cartoons. He also, quote, wanted Luffy's fights to regain some funny elements, even though he was aware the general audience of One Piece would not like this concept because the general action sequences of contemporary shonen battle mangas are taken very seriously, causing the genre's uniqueness in the past to be lost over time, end quote. As much as I love a shonen anime, sometimes it is nice to see a show take itself a little less seriously and just have some fun. And it really works for me, and I'm not entirely sure why, because I hate when Marvel does it. Maybe it works here because the silliness really fits Luffy's character that has been developed over the last almost 30 years now, instead of a fourth wall breaking gag that also ruins the music that Marvel is so famous for. But anyways, I feel like I could end the video here, but as we all know, the series doesn't end here. So let's take a look at a couple other times that Gear 5 is used. Moving to the Egghead arc with episode 1100, about 6 minutes in. When the Drums of Liberation enter in this episode, Luffy is conscious, although he's already been fighting Lucci for a bit and has exhausted the power of his other gears. As with the first instance of Gear 5, at first there is only a heartbeat sound, but the addition of the Drums of Liberation comes much faster than in the previous example. We hear the taiko drum alone for only 2 rounds of 2 beats above that heartbeat before the cue settles into the groove. Right before the melodic portion enters, you can catch the addition of the entrance of the bongos and congas. Luffy is still transforming when the melodic part enters, which happens much faster than before. And of course you get all the crazy sound effects and joyful laughter above the music, as well as the crazy animation. The speed of the music here feels very intentional. The introductory scene was quite long, but also it was an introduction, so it made sense to really build up the tension of the new music. Here the scene is a bit shorter, but also we as viewers know what is coming and are ready for that payoff. Notably in this scene, this is the first time that someone, Jinbei, identifies Luffy specifically as the Warrior of Liberation, since with the Elders it was just the associations of the gum-gum fruit. One thing that bothers me about this scene is that the music cuts off very abruptly in the second to last measure of the melody, as Luffy attacks Lucci with a big punch. The seriousness brought on by the sudden silence is quickly broken by the boinging, if that's a word, noises from Lucci bouncing across the ground and into a building. And we never do get the payoff of that final measure, which bothers me. Like, seriously, would it have killed them to add it here? Anyways, moving on. Towards the end of Egghead, in episode 1151, about 8 minutes in, the Drums of Liberation start up again. Most of the Straw Hats and their allies have made it to the Giants' ships, but those ships are on fire thanks to the Navy and the Elders. The Flying Elder is about to take out everyone when out of nowhere the heartbeat sound starts, and Bonnie is the first to notice. After transforming into Nika, Luffy turns everything into bouncy rubber again and says, "Dance with me." The Giants oblige and start doing the slave dance that Kuma had taught to Bonnie. Right after she notices this, the tempo of the drumming picks up, and we can hear the Overtaken rhythm in the drums, even though none of the pitched instruments have started playing it yet.
We're counting on you, Luffy.
Whoa! What the?
You fool! Stop dancing and put out the fire!
The melody starts when Bonnie turns around, sees Luffy in his Gear 5 form, and gasps, "Nika?"
Nika? I still have no idea who that is. Let's go. You want to make those guys pay, don't ya? Yeah, but I'm not strong enough. I don't have power.
This feels so symbolic here. Bonnie, who was born as a reject from her elder sperm donor, he doesn't deserve to be called a father, taken in by Kuma, who loved her unconditionally but was trapped inside because of the sickness her mother passed on to her, had that same adoptive father give up everything to get her the cure so she could be free, only to be chasing his freedom for this whole time, while still actually being a little girl, even though she makes herself look older, is now being well and truly liberated by the one that her father always told her to put her faith in, that just so happens to be the quirky pirate boy she had befriended earlier. And with this new version of the Overtaken theme that has represented freedom brought by Luffy and the Straw Hats up to this point, she uses her distorted future to create a version of herself where she is the most free.
Distorted future! Now, a future where I'm the most free! There you go! Told ya!
I want to look at one more episode, the very next episode, 1152. This is an interesting choice here. It's not actually the Gear 5 theme. Bonnie has lost her Nika form and is being attacked by her sperm donor. Again, that man should not be called a father. But as she regains her power, what plays?
One more time. The future? Where I'm the most free!
That's Overtaken, not Gear 5. I'm not sure how intentional the choice was here, since they might have just wanted to use different music, so they're not using the same music on top of each other, but I'm going to read into it anyways. It does feel a lot different from earlier instances of Overtaken, except maybe the one with Kyros after Luffy frees Dressrosa. Like with Kyros, Luffy has already freed Bonnie. She just lost that sense of freedom, but as she regains it, Overtaken is playing as a sort of victory march, like in with Kyros at the end of Dressrosa. Watch my Overtaken video if you haven't already for more on that. What is different in this scene is how Luffy maintains his Gear 5 form throughout, which I think is the first time Overtaken is used when he's in that form, which helps to connect the two themes contextually as well as musically. As a reminder, this anime premiered in 1999. Some of you watching this probably weren't even born yet, which makes me feel old. But anyways, Overtaken was used in the second episode, the first time Luffy frees one of his crewmates. And then for the next 24 years, since this episode came out in 2023, Kohei Tanaka writes the music that connects that music he wrote, probably on a whim for that second episode, through all the associations I went through in my previous video and more, for 24 years, and uses that same theme mixed up with drums from all over the world to represent that ultimate freedom that Luffy has been looking for and bringing to the world from the beginning. I seriously want to know if Tanaka sat down with Oda, or if he did that on his own, or who else was involved, because some films can't keep themes straight for 2 hours, let alone keeping the theme straight for 24 years, to create this incredible payoff and connection across the entire series. This music connects all the times Luffy, as just silly Pirate Kid Luffy, liberated first crew members and later entire nations, to Luffy as Nika, the literal god of liberation, or whatever he's now, liberating the entire world, connected by the music, but changed to fit the characters' changes. If you want to know how to write music for a show, this is it. And it's cool to bring in some extra associations along the way, like using drums from around our world to represent their world. Overtaken and Gear 5 are some of, if not my absolute favorite music from One Piece, if you couldn't tell. And when you really look at how the two themes are used throughout the show, they really are the heart of the story, that search for ultimate freedom. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe for future videos. I'm not sure what to make next. I did promise more How to Train Your Dragon content, and I'm also on a bit of a roll with One Piece. but not sure what else to cover there. So drop a comment if there is a particular music cue you want me to cover. And as always, thank you all so much for watching.